accounts of how much the government's revenues are, how much its expenditure is, but more than that, it gives you an overall sense of direction that the India story is going to take over the next 12 months. And this year, it's all the more important because it is an election year. There has to be something in it for the political classes, as it were, for different vote banks, for different constituencies. Yet at the same time, there is a fiscal tightrope that the finance minister has to walk. So Nalin, how does she do that challenge? If you look at the pre-election budgets, whether it was Pranab Mukherjee in 2013-14, whether it was Chidambaram before that, Yashwant Sinha, there is this tendency to announce something for the middle classes, the poorer sections. Mr. Modi has sort of refrained from that, except of course in 2019 when he had the Kisan Samman Nidhi, which was announced just before the 2019 elections. Do you see something of that nature, some sop for any voting bloc, as it were, in this budget?
I think the signaling on that is going to be exactly what we have to watch out for, Zaka. The BJP, as you know, has announced a whole program of education on the budget, educating people on the budget from the 1st to the 12th. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with something that's going to be in the budget. I think we should expect to see something on farmers. I think Gaurav was talking about that in the morning on PM Kisan. There is an argument to be made on increasing that because there's been because of inflation and so on. I think there's an argument to be made on that. I think we should watch out for what is there for the middle class, which hasn't necessarily got specific things in the last 2 or 3 years. So how they do that and which sections they choose to specifically signal to is what is significant. I also think you will see something on, we could be seeing something on the water scheme, on the Har Ghar, on the scheme for Jal, Har Ghar Jal.
Yeah. I think that's a big sort of thing for the government. I think there was an announcement a few days ago about 7 states, if I'm not mistaken, where they have got 24/7 water connections to the entire state. But let me get in Saket as well as Tapti Ghosh into this. Saket, I keep coming back to this whole middle class conversation. Of course, the middle classes, at least if we were to look at electorally, have solidly stayed behind this government. And yet, there hasn't been as much for the middle classes in budgets before. One of the pending and one of the long-standing demands has been to increase the income tax exemption limit from 2.5 maybe to 5 lakhs. Do you see any sort of specific middle class measures when it comes to taxation that is likely to be mentioned in the budget this time?
Zaka, I mean, beyond the slab, I don't see much happening in terms of taxation for the middle class. I mean, politically, I think the reason why the middle class has stood solidly behind the Modi government is because they are creating opportunities for whether it's jobs or whether it's people from middle class for the first time starting businesses on their own, self-employment. So I think it's much more to do with a sustainable sort of support to the middle classes that's been achieved, along with obviously improvements in education, health, etc., which people have suffered from. So I think politically, I don't see tax as being a major action point for the government in any material way politically.
No, one of the things we haven't talked about enough is the digitization. Of course, in UPI, India is now a global leader. I'm not sure of the exact X number of billion transactions that happen every month in India on UPI. But Tapti Ghosh, because of that, one of the knock-on effects has also been the tax base itself widening. I think the last fiscal year, there were 6 crore plus assessees. So that in itself is something that we've been trying to achieve for a very long time. And digitization and the pandemic, I think, has hastened that process.
And yes, Zaka, from a procedural perspective, that digitization has really helped. You have the AIS, TIS that is available to all of us. We know the transactions that we've entered into, and it gives us more scope to file our tax returns right and ensure that the revenue that is due gets into the system. But just to get back on the middle class question as well, today we define our middle class as 10 lakhs. Beyond which the highest tax bracket kicks in of 30%. Is that 10 lakhs really the right threshold? Given inflation, given the additional income that is in the hands of that middle class, can that be raised to 20 lakhs or even 25 lakhs? And consequently, the higher income group and the low income group gets defined as well. You talked about 2.5 to 5 lakhs a couple of times, Zaka. Now the question is, the objective of this government has always been to expand the tax base, and can they really increase the threshold, or would they bring that down to make it easier for the middle class in terms of tax outflow. So, two questions that we'll probably find answers to in the coming budget. The other thing is, the overall theme of simplification, because that is also something that's going to be helping taxpayers across all levels, low, mid and high. In terms of, the theme, they brought in the simplified tax regime to increase the tax base, lower tax rates as well. But did it really serve the objective? Do we need a tweaking in that? The highest tax bracket there as well is 30%, so where's the incentive? So those questions really need to be looked at. Over and above was that we are giving up about
I think that's a great point that she's making. The new tax regime was brought in a couple of years ago, and as per the returns filed for the last financial year, I believe the number of people who are assessees under the new regime is 2 crores or just under 2 crores, and of the total 6 crores. So will there be some kind of, I wouldn't say rethink, but at least a look at whether the new tax regime has helped, both in terms of increasing the base and, of course, the returns itself?
I think so, because you cannot have a system where you have 2 different tax regimes in place, where one calls for exemption and also gives you tax incentives for investing in a pool of instruments.
Correct.
And where you don't have any incentives and there are no exemptions, so you are not encouraged to save. And also in the previous regime, where you have systems like Section 80C, where you are allowed to invest and for which you can claim exemptions and tax deductions. It also helps the government's public finance management to the extent that the government's large part of the government's fiscal deficit is also actually funded from small savings that households park in this kind of instruments. Now, if you do that away completely, if there is no incentive for households to park money in this kind of instruments because there are no tax incentives or deductions or exemptions available, I think it could also disrupt the government's public finance management to a great extent. So I would think if a choice were to be made, if a trade-off were to be made, I think the government will probably go with the previous one, the existing one, with trying to iron out gaps and rough edges there, instead of trying to bring in a completely new regime, which could be disruptive for the government more.
I don't know if Gurcharan Das is still there, because he's a big advocate of not having any exemptions. You pay a flat tax depending on your income, what slab you're supposed to pay. He believes that that these exemptions are wasted instruments. Why is that?
Well, one of the benefits you're talking about, also benefiting the people. Simplicity benefits the people, and exemptions complicate that. And this is the same principle that you have in the case of this plethora of tax rates related to capital gains. They distort the economic decisions of the players.
Yeah.
So, bonds, equity, real estate, capital gains should be taxed at the same level. You shouldn't need a CA to do those things. My point is, one of the benefits here of digitization has been things like faceless assessments, which are great achievement, I think, that we have achieved. And the harassment level has gone down. So there is a huge benefit. If you want to benefit the people, keep it simple. Keep KISS,
keep it simple, stupid. Yeah.
And so I really think that transparent, simple tax regime that everybody can understand, and foreign investors in particular appreciate that in a country, that there is one tax rate. And a lot of the industry has been wanting lowering of tax, and I personally think that we have achieved a degree of competitiveness now in corporate tax also. So we shouldn't be tinkering too much,
it's interesting you say that. Let me ask Nalin this.
Focus.
Because, in corporate tax, we have come down to, I think it's 18%, 20%, around that range, which would be very, very competitive compared to, the rest of the world. But on income tax, if you're in the highest bracket, you're paying 30%. And then you add the surcharges and the cesses, You're effectively paying about 40-42% tax if you're in the highest bracket. Is there a case for that rationalization, or is there no political incentive to make that rationalization? Because, like you said, anyway, that class votes for the BJP.
So I think you're right. I think there is no great political impetus for this, simply because while that is what it is for high net worth individuals, that is lower than many other liberal democracies like Australia or in the UK and so on. It's much higher than what it is in a country like Singapore. So I think what the government is trying to do is to do a balancing act where you make it more attractive for them to invest in, but not necessarily for their own income.
Right. And also, if you look at the figures, for instance, number of people who report income of more than 1 crore or 2 crore, or people who have filed returns in the highest income tax bracket, that's still in thousands. I think it was about 48,000 or something, those who reported an annual income of more than 2 crore rupees. But that does not match with their expenses. So, or the kind of consumption that you see on the roads, for instance, you see more cars. If you stand on the Greater Noida Expressway for 1 hour, you'll see more cars crossing by, which cost more than 1 crore rupees than people who have reported income of more than 1 crore rupees. So, there's a gap there. But that doesn't mean that you don't simplify the tax structure.
It's interesting, I mean, because one of the big middle class peeves. Anyway, we've got 6 minutes. In 6 minutes, the finance minister will rise up in parliament to present the union budget 23-24. The indication from the markets, certainly great expectations. The Sensex is up, I think, 400 points last time I checked. So great expectations from the Sensex, from Dalal Street, as it were. Great expectations from the middle class, no doubt about it. There you go. The Sensex is up 540 points, above 60,000. We talk about, psychological barriers and technical barriers. I think 60,000 definitely is a psychological barrier. The Nifty at 17,800, up almost 150 points. So clearly the markets have great expectations from the finance minister. The middle classes have great expectations. The voting blocks too. Let's not forget, this is an election year budget. So the voting blocks, whether it's women, whether it is farmers, they have great expectations as well. Will Nirmala Sitharaman be able to live up to those expectations? 4 minutes from now is when she will arrive in Parliament, alive in the Lok Sabha, and her name will be called out by the Lok Sabha Speaker, and she will rise to present the budget. I'll get quick closing comments. First from Saket. Saket, the one big thing that you're looking out for in this year's budget? Quickly.
I think just more focused benefits for the poorest.
All right, most focused benefits for the poorest. Tapti, the one big thing that you're looking out for?
Simplification, capital gains, simplification in the simplified tax regime with more benefits attached to it.
So capital gains, you mean on equities, right? On long-term equities?
Across several asset classes, several tax rates, period of holding for determining long-term, short-term. It's too complicated for the layman.
Okay.
Needs to be changed.
Okay. So that's an interesting one. Mr. Das, the one thing that you're expecting from this budget, what would be the one big takeaway that if she ticks that box, this is a dream budget for you?
Well, I would like the fiscal deficit to be in the prudent zone, and a roadmap to achieving the 25-26 4.5% target. Plus, given the buoyancy in taxes, I would like the continue of the capex and the infrastructure spending.
All right, so infrastructure spending, the capex, it was a very aggressive target, 7.5 lakh crores last time. So first thing I would like to know is how much of that has actually been expended? Like, have they met the target of 7.5 lakh crores?
Until November 2022, I think 60% of those have been spent. So probably we're going to meet the target, the annual target, the budget targets for this year. I would expect about a 15% rise in the capex.
So you're essentially looking at close to
about
10 lakh crores.
Yeah, upwards of 9 lakh crores.
Wow.
And second, I would expect something to be announced on the farmers front. So PM Kisan Nidhi obviously looks like a distinct possibility. But more importantly, I think it's about time that Finance Minister actually standardizes and simplifies the long-term capital gains for all asset classes.
So this LTCG has been a real sore point for a while, not just amongst those who are invested in the markets, but even regular middle class. I mean, the middle class investors through mutual funds and other instruments into the stock markets in the last 4 or 5 years, and particularly during the pandemic, has just exponentially increased. So for them as well, LTCG is a sore point. Do you have a sore point, anything that?
No, not really. I think I agree with the point on LTGC. I do think that the tax, the ceiling on the tax exemption from 2.5 to 5, I think that would impact a lot more people, including ATC, and that's also signaling. So that's something I would be looking for, that do they actually emphasize that or not?
By the way, we tend to forget this, but for working women, I think the exemption is 50,000 more.
That's
so
right.
I think
Yes.
even in that side, if there were to be a signal
Yeah,
that, let's say, that exemption
absolutely.
for women is more than 1 lakh, again, like we all know, the women constituency is
Yes.
a big one for the Modi government. So a minute to go, exactly 1 minute to go, and we can go to, I think, full frame pictures. I'm sure Lok Sabha will be routing the live pictures that's coming in from the lower house. In exactly a minute, the finance minister will rise up in parliament to present the union budget 2023-24. Like we said, India has put in the hard yards. The pandemic years were hard. India stuck to that path of fiscal prudence. We hope that the finance minister continues on that path. Yet there are pulls and pressures on the economic side. There are recessionary tendencies in the global committee of nations, as it were. You're seeing tech layoffs happen. So that is one pressure point. There is, of course, the other pressure point of this being an election year. So she will have to have something for every voting class, whether it's the middle classes, the farmers, the women. Will have to loosen up the purse strings just a tad bit as well. So it is going to be a fiscal tightrope walk for the finance minister, for the Modi Sarkar. But make absolutely no mistake about this. There is going to be the imprint, there is going to be the stamp of Narendra Modi and what he stands for, Modi-nomics, as we call it over the last 8 years. That is going to be very much front and center of this budget document. The speech, Nirmala Sitharaman, we talked about this a moment ago, has still the record. All right, we have live pictures from the Lok Sabha.
माननीय अध्यक्ष जी,
आइटम नंबर 1, माननीय वित्त मंत्री श्रीमती निर्मला सीतारमण जी।
Honorable Speaker, I present the budget for 2023-2024. This is the first budget in Amrit Kal. This budget hopes to build on the foundation laid in the previous budget and the blueprint drawn for India at 100. We envision a prosperous and inclusive India in which the fruits of development will reach all sections and citizens, especially our youth, women, farmers, OBCs, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. In the 75th year of our independence, the world has recognized the Indian economy as a bright star. Our current year's economic growth is estimated to be at 7%. It is notable that this is the highest among all the major economies. This is in spite of the massive slowdown globally caused by COVID-19 and the war. The Indian economy is therefore on the right track and despite a time of challenges, heading towards a bright future. Today, as Indians stand with their head held high and the world appreciates India's achievements and successes, we are sure that elders who had fought for India's independence will, with joy, bless us in our endeavors going forward as well. Our focus on wide-ranging reforms and sound policies implemented through Sabka Prayas, resulting in Jan Bhagidari and targeted support to those in need, helped us perform well in trying times. India's rising global profile is because of the several accomplishments. Unique world-class digital public infrastructure, example, Aadhaar, CoWIN and UPI. COVID vaccination drive in unparalleled scale and speed, proactive role in frontier areas such as achieving the climate-related goals, Mission Life, and National Hydrogen Mission. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we ensured that no one goes to bed hungry with a scheme to supply free food grains to over 80 crore persons for 28 months. Continuing our commitment to ensure food and nutritional security, we are implementing from 1st January 2023 a scheme to supply free food grain to all Antyodaya and priority households for the next 1 year. Under PM Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, the entire expenditure of about 2 lakh crore will be borne by the central government. In these times of global challenges, the G20 presidency gives us a unique opportunity to strengthen India's role in the world economic order. With the theme of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, we are steering an ambitious, people-centric agenda to address global challenges and to facilitate sustainable economic development. The government's efforts since 2014 have ensured for all citizens a better quality of life and life of dignity. The per capita income has more than doubled to 1.97 lakh rupees. In these 9 years, the Indian economy has increased in size from being 10th to 5th largest in the world. We have significantly improved our position as well as a well-governed and innovative country with a conducive environment for business as reflected in several global indices. We have made a significant progress in many sustainable development goals. The economy has become a lot more formalized as reflected in the EPFO membership, more than doubling to 27 crore and rupees 7,400 crore digital payments of 126 lakh crore rupees through UPI in 2022. The efficient implementation of many schemes with universalization of targeted benefits has resulted in inclusive development. Some of the schemes are 11.7 crore household toilets under Swachh Bharat mission, which is achieved, 9.6 crore LPG connections under Ujjwala, 220 crore COVID vaccination of 102 crore persons, 47.8 crore PM Jan Dhan bank accounts, insurance cover for 44.6 crore persons under PM Suraksha Bima and PM Jeevan Jyoti Yojana, and cash transfer of 2.2 lakh crores of rupees to 11.4 crore to over 11.4 crore farmers under PM Kisan Samman Nidhi. Our vision for the Amritkal includes technology-driven and knowledge-based economy with strong public finances and a robust financial sector. To achieve this, Jan Bhagidari through Sabka Saath Sabka Prayas is essential. The economic agenda for achieving this vision focuses on 3 things. First, facilitating ample opportunities for citizens, especially the youth, to fulfill their aspirations. Second, providing strong impetus to growth and job creation. And third, strengthening macroeconomic stability. To service these focus areas in our journey to India at 100, we believe that the following 4 opportunities can be transformative during Amrit Kal. Economic empowerment of women. Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana National Rural Livelihood Mission has achieved remarkable success by mobilizing rural women into 81 lakh self-help groups. We will enable these groups to reach the next stage of economic empowerment through formation of large producer enterprises or collectives, with each having several thousand members and managed professionally. They will be helped with raw materials supply and for better design, quality, branding, and marketing of their products. Through supporting these policies, they will be enabled to scale up their operations to serve the large consumer markets, as has been the case with the several startups growing into unicorns. PM Vishwakarma Kaushal Samman, PM Vikas. For centuries, traditional artisans and craftspeople who work with their hands using tools have brought renown for India. They're generally referred to as Vishwakarma. The art and the handicraft created by them represents the true spirit of Atmanirbhar Bharat. For the first time, a package of assistance for them has been conceptualized. The new scheme will enable them to improve the quality, scale, and reach of their products, integrating them with the MSME value chain. The components of this scheme will include not only financial support, but also access to advanced skill training, knowledge of modern digital techniques, and efficient green technologies, brand promotion, linkage with local and global markets, digital payments, and social security. This will greatly benefit the scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, OBCs, women, and people belonging to the weaker sections. Tourism. The country offers immense attraction for domestic as well as foreign tourists. There is a large potential to be tapped in tourism. The sector holds huge opportunities for jobs and entrepreneurship for youth in particular. Promotion of tourism will be taken up on mission mode with active participation of states, convergence of government programs, and public-private partnerships. Green growth. We are implementing many programs for green fuel, green energy, green farming, green mobility, green buildings, and green equipment, and policies for efficient use of energy across various economic sectors. These green growth efforts help in reducing carbon intensity of the economy and provides for large-scale green job opportunities. Priorities of this budget. The budget adopts the following 7 priorities. They complement each other and act as the Saptarishi guiding us through the Amrit Kal. Inclusive development, reaching the last mile, infrastructure and investment, unleashing the potential, green growth, youth power, and financial sector. I now speak on the priority number 1, inclusive development. The government's philosophy of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas has facilitated inclusive development covering in specific farmers, women, youth, OBCs, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, Divyangjan, and economically weaker sections, and overall priority for the underprivileged, Vanchiton ko Variyata. There has also been a sustained focus on Jammu Kashmir, Ladakh, and the Northeast. This budget builds on those efforts. Digital public infrastructure for agriculture. Digital public infrastructure for agriculture will be built as an open source, open standard, and interoperable public good. This will enable inclusive farmer-centric solutions through relevant information services for crop planning and health, improved access to farm inputs, credit and insurance, help for crop estimation, market intelligence, and support for growth of agri-tech industry and startups. An agriculture accelerator fund. An agriculture accelerator fund will be set up to encourage agri-startups by young entrepreneurs in rural areas. The fund will aim at bringing innovative and affordable solutions for challenges faced by farmers. It will also bring in modern technologies to transform agricultural practices, increase productivity and profitability. To enhance the productivity of extra long staple cotton, we will adopt a cluster-based and value chain approach through public-private partnerships. This will mean collaboration between farmers, state, and industry for input supplies, extension services, and market linkages. We will launch an Atmanirbhar Clean Plant program to boost availability of disease-free, quality planting material for high-value horticultural crops at an outlay of 2,200 crores. Global hub for millets, millets which are Sri Anna. India is the forefront. India's at the forefront of popularizing millets, whose consumption furthers nutrition, food security, and welfare of farmers, said the Honorable Prime Minister. We are the largest user and second largest exporter of Sri Anna in the world. We grow several types of Sri Anna, such as Sri Anna Jowar, Sri Anna Ragi, Sri Anna Bajra, Sri Anna Kutu, Ramdana, Kangni, Kutni, Kutki, Kodo, China, and Sama. These have a number of health benefits and have been an integral part of our food for centuries. I acknowledge with pride the huge service done by small farmers in contributing to the health of fellow citizens by growing these Sri Anna. Now, to make India a global hub for Sri Anna, the Indian Institute of Millet Research, ideally Indian Institute of the Sri Anna Research, Hyderabad, will be supported as the center of excellence for sharing best practices, research,